its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey, you're back with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, which is, as you've heard from the break, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So if you can, either tell someone else, but do it yourself, push the donate button, and help out the station. You know, you can also get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, and there's an archive. You can jump in and grab any of the host's favourite shows. You can get those, and you know, get yourself a mug, a t-shirt or something like that, and that's also supports the station, because it is, remember, it is listener funded, but it means we're not directed to say anything specific by anyone with a lot of money. That's the most important part. And I'm going to also thank you for listening to Revolution Radio. We're halfway through show number 651. That is Mecky and I, but Mecky's sadly absent. It's Father's Day here, and while there was technical difficulties doing a migration of the servers for the station, they weren't ready for during the week, and he had the impression that it still wasn't up, and it was only recently made available, so he was operating on some news that wasn't current, which is fine. This is why we have two hosts, so we can take over for each other in another one's absence. And that's fine, and I wish him well, and I know I'm going to have a really nice Father's Day dinner tonight. I look forward to having that after the show is concluded. Now, I'm going to talk about megalithic builders, and this is part 8 in the cycle, but before I do mention them, I wanted to bring something up, which is actually pretty cool. I'm just going through the show notes to get to the point where we can talk about it. That's great. Now, there was something I missed in the first hour of the show, and that was, let me see, is it display 1? Yes, it is. Okay, so we just had in Australia for the first time the fastest winds recorded without there being a cyclone or a hurricane or a what's it called? Hurricane, tornado. Oh, what's the other one? I forget the other one. Anyway, so we had 165 kilometre-hour winds. It's not a tornado or a hurricane or a cyclone. It was just simply a front coming through. Now, 163 kilometres an hour is 101.2 miles per hour wind. And that's equivalent to a level 3 hurricane or cyclone. Isn't that crazy? Like a Cat 3. So, as Mecky would say, make no mistake, that is something else. We don't have anything like that. The 90 kilometre-hour winds was the typical front speed, and now we've got one that's now 165 kilometres per hour. Actually, I said it's 163. Let me just update that, because I've just noticed that's what's on screen. And it's 102.5 miles an hour. That's fast. No denying that's fast. So that was one story, and this is just backed onto the news. And I wanted to say there is nothing left of a truck. This is from a day ago. This was from yesterday. There was nothing left from a truck on the Bruce Highway up in Queensland that was carrying chemicals that exploded. There's nothing. It had hit a car, a ute, as we call them. You might call them like work trucks. It hit one of those and it exploded, leaving nothing left. There's a crater. There's a crater left behind. I think this is it here. So I'm circling with the mouse if you can see that. Sure. Now it reminded me of the cement truck from Mythbusters. That and it was gone. Well, this truck doesn't exist anymore. And police had, knowing that there were these dangerous chemicals on board, had actually they'd made a safety zone of 2 kilometers, 2.1 kilometers or something around the crash site, and it's even blown some of the roadway or barrier away, which is, I don't know how far that would be. That's probably 10 meters or less from the crater. I'd say maybe 50 yards to 60 yards away. It had blown something apart. Like, that's just nuts. Ammonium nitrate was the chemicals. We know how strong that is. We've seen the blast that occurred in, well, where was it? Turkey? No. At the wharf, remember those years ago? And next to the grain silos? Anyway, just saying. So, just something else. I just wanted to bring those two things up because they're extraordinary. Don't see those very often. There was another Bruce Highway thing from years ago where the truck had, I think, more chemicals than that, and it was even a larger blast, and yet again, no truck. The truck was gone. So, look, if you see ammonium nitrate label on the back, or if you know the chemical number or the warning plate number, because all trucks must have a plate number at the back, like it's not a stop sign, not a giveaway sign. It's like a diamond-shaped plate. It's a square but turned on its side, 90 degrees, 45 degrees. So, because 90 degrees would just turn it one whole side and it would still be a square. So 45-degree turn, and it's got, warning chemicals or something like that. It'll have a hazard rating, some number. And if you know what the numbers you're looking at for ammonium nitrate, I would stay away from that car. I'd stay away from the truck. Whatever it is that's carrying them, that's bad. So the police were able to identify that straight away and create a safety perimeter. And luckily, they evacuated, I think, 2 people or a few people. And when it did go off, it was bad. So no more truck. Moving on. Now let's get into the juicy show notes for today's show, and that's Megalithic Builders Part 8. And I'm just remembering where we're at, 651. And for those people who are watching this in YouTube land in the future or currently live, I don't mind which, every once in a while I will share a screen shot so you get to see the picture. I can't do everything at once. When Meki's talking, normally I'm able to maybe do something extra, but I can't do that today. I don't have a control panel or anything like that, so I'm just working on my own. Now, this is in the topic of the sculpture of Akhenaten as a youth. It says, posted July 12th, 2007 at 7 p.m. Like Tutankhamun, the mummy was found to have an elongated skull due to a congenital condition, dilochocephalism, in which abnormally early fusion of the bones of the skull during development restricts the width of the head, and also, like Tutankhamun, the mummy was found to have a cleft palate, impacted wisdom teeth, and slight scoliosis, or abnormal curvature of the spine. It is therefore probable that the individual had a genetic link with Tutankhamun. Now, I know I pronounced Tutankhamun and Tutankhamun differently. I just did that so you'll understand that they're the same. That's all. Now, the sculpture of Akhenaten's 6 daughters, and I'm putting this on the middle screen again. Here's a shot of the sculpture. It definitely looks like there's an additional part of the skull, and it's not cradle boarded. So, who were the ancient megalithic builders? Depending on the true age of some sites, they were us, and for the still to be recognized much older sites, a much older yet to be recognized version of us. Notice how I've avoided the term primitive. This is the author, not me. I honestly don't believe that after the mixture of the two hominin lines occurred that they were primitive at all. Maybe some isolated pockets were, but not all of them. The earliest and most ancient builders were probably a slightly different version of us, one which was the result of mass migration of early Homo sapiens out of Africa and the Neanderthals that were forced south from Europe because of the Ice Age glaciation of their former region. There they mixed with and interbred with each other somewhere in what is now known as the Fertile Crescent, then moved out across the globe, all during a prehistoric period of our past. They explored the world long before recorded history. I feel, this is the author, that many of their accomplishments have been undeservedly given to our much more recent modern ancestors. Many in the scientific Darwinism crowd will probably ask, where's the proof? Where's the beef? Where's the proof? My response would be something like, many of them still believe in a missing link, yet one has not been found. So the proof for this theory and possible scenario has not been found yet either. Keep digging. Consider the following first. Final thoughts on evolution and creationism. We as a species have always carried with us both science and religion. I believe deep down inside mankind has always understood this. We build temples, ancient or not, which require planning, engineering, and mathematics sciences to accomplish them. Is this not a form of symbiosis? For those who believe in a stricter form of religion, did not God give us the ability for higher thinking? I don't believe this text, by the way. I'm just reading the text verbatim. Maybe the fossil record is nothing more than how an infinite being went about his business during creation. Religion's original purpose was to teach man how to be in contact with his creator on a spiritual level, not for religion to take on any physical real world authority over him. Science should be used to better the way of life, not to create means in which to enslave and profit from others who need, for example, certain medicines to live, or to modify and then patent certain foods, animal and vegetable, this is GMO, etc. Someday, when religion expands and finally grasps the full potential that God himself gave us, and science finally figures out all there is to know about the macro, micro, and even the multi through their advanced high-tech tools, I have a feeling that while peering at the infinitely small or infinitely large, they'll find a sign of sorts hanging there that simply reads, and that says ... You can imagine what it says. And that comes from above top secret. I'm going to paste the link into a chat room and just offend all the Germans on the planet. Now, talking about lost ancient technology of Peru and Bolivia. Contrary to conventional thought, the Inca were not the most technologically advanced culture in the area of modern Peru and Bolivia, but were preceded by the great megalithic builders thousands of years before. That's a quote from Brian Forrester. We've had him on the show twice. He talked about the Paracas skulls and the wonderful stonework down there. Pumapunku, located near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, is one of the most mysterious places on Earth. It is unknown who made it and when, and now we can see that it was destroyed by an ancient cataclysm and has odd magnetic anomalies. If you want to see something extremely odd, look there. Peru. Why are there so many ancient stone structures found in Peru, and how were they so precisely made, and when? The conventional academic explanation that the Inca built everything to be found across Cuzco and the Sacred Valley of Peru has become a comical farce. The Inca, though an incredibly advanced and sophisticated people, did not have the technology to shape hard stone with such accuracy. And even their oral traditions speak of those who came before. One such people were the mysterious Viracochans. I gotta say it slowly because it's a word I haven't seen before. Thought to be myth, but now turning out to be actual people with amazing technical skill, in some ways surpassing our own. Join with us as we find the answers and roll back the historical records of humanity. Stone monuments of Peru before the Inca, before the Great Flood. Vilcabamba area. Archaeologists have no clue who made this or when. Looks like there's some images missing out of this. I don't know why. Bolivia. Hello, Or Green. Welcome to the chat room. The probable age of Tiwanaku is the second period calculated on the basis of the variation of the obliquity of the ecliptic. Would be approximately 15,000 BC. Naturally, this calculation is in no sense definitive. For example, the factor T3 of the formula of the International Ephemeris Conference of Paris may well vary in the light of future astronomical knowledge. If the curve of the obliquity of the ecliptic should, for some reason as yet unknown to us, be more inclined, the calculated age of Tiwanaku would also be somewhat less. But it is an established fact that whatever calculation might be used to determine the age of the temple of the sun of Tiwanaku, on the basis of the variation of the obliquity of the ecliptic from those times until today, would demonstrate that American Solar Observatory is more ancient than any monument of man in the world of which we know up to this time, says Arthur Poznansky. Note: read fragment of Arthur Poznansky's book Tiwanaku, the Cradle of American Man, we added to this post, and it says, the ruins of Tiwanaku have been regarded by all students of American antiquities as in many respects the most interesting and important, and at the time most enigmatical of any of the continent. They have excited the admiration and wonder alike of the earliest and latest travellers, most of whom, vanquished in their attempts to penetrate the mystery of their origin, have been content to assign them an antiquity beyond that of the other monuments of America, and to regard them as the solitary remains of a civilization that disappeared before that of the Incas began, and contemporaries with that of Egypt and the East. great quote, unique yet perfect in type and harmonious in style, they appear to be the work of a people who were thorough masters of an architecture which had no infancy, passed through no period of growth, and of which we find no other examples. Tradition, which mumbles more or less intelligibly of the origin of many other American monuments, is dumb concerning these. The wandering Indians told the first Spaniards that they existed before the sun shone in the heavens, that they were raised by giants, or that they were the remains of an impious people whom an angry deity had converted into stone because they had refused hospitality to his vicegerent and messenger. That's E. George Squire. And I'm going to also paste that into the chat room so the people in the chat room can see it. There it is. Megalithic civilization hypothesis. The megalithic civilization hypothesis proposes that megaliths such as the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, and other megalithic structures throughout the world were built by a common group of people or civilizations during the Neolithic period. Alexander Thom, that's Thom, in 1950 has referred to these builders as megalithic man. The hypothesis bases itself on the accurate measurements found in megalithic metrology, and it's look at megalithic geometry, that are observed for virtually all known megaliths discovered. The hypothesis challenges mainstream theories. Thus, many scientific communities consider research for a megalithic civilization as pseudo-scientific. Now, there's controversy. I wonder what it is. Research in support of this hypothesis is often considered pseudo-scientific by mainstream scientific and archaeological circles because it challenges the current and accepted human evolutionary paradigm. The hypothesis supposes that megalithic man was smarter than what modern science gives credit for. That's due to the complex mathematics proposed in the placement of blocks, as it contradicts mainstream's time frame of how humans evolved from hunter-gatherer types to forming civilization. The dating and precision of Göbekli Tepe is an example of how archaeologists and the mainstream scientific community have no other option but to recognize or reconsider how early man really developed. Modern-day branches of the megalithic civilization hypothesis also challenges when and who the builders were for the Giza pyramid complex, proposing that megalithic man, this is the Neolithic period, built them before 3500 BCE rather than the Egyptians themselves. Hang on a minute, just well done. So the Egyptians, I always make this joke that the Egyptians, when first asked, I think was it the French, wasn't it, discovered their head sticking out of the ground. And did you build this? Oh yeah, built it. How? Oh, I forgot. We forgot. It happens. Generations ago, we built it, but we don't remember who, when, and where, when, and how, whatever. Right there, it is. We built it, though. It's there. And that joke annoys a lot of people because we just, we're accepting the narrative and believing it. But then when you look at the water erosion around it, not on it, but around it, it doesn't match up to we kind of just built it or built it only that long ago, because there's so much water erosion that it would have been around a lot longer than that. So megalithic yard. The megalithic yard, and it's called MY, is a unit of measurement of about 2.72 feet that some researchers hypothesize was used in the construction of megalithic structures. The proposal was made by Alexander Thom as a result of his surveys of 600 megalithic sites in England, Scotland, Wales and Brittany. Thom also proposed a megalithic rod of 2.5 my. As subunits of these, he further proposed the megalithic inch of 2.073 centimeters, 100 of which are included in a megalithic rod, and 40 of which compose the megalithic yard. But Thom's proposals were initially ignored or regarded as unbelievable by mainstream archaeologists. Thom applied the statistical lumped variance test of J.R. Broadbent on this quantum and found the results significant, yet others challenged his statistical analysis and suggested Thom's evidence for supposed megalithic yard could be explained as an average length of a pace unit, whatever that is. Douglas Heggie's analysis of the megalithic yard, or MY, claims little evidence for highly accurate unit and little justification for the claim that a highly accurate unit was in use. Thus, Thom's findings were and are continued today considered pseudoscientific by major scientific and archaeological circles. However, there is enough evidence to support megalithic standards that the megalithic yard has caught the attention of smaller communities of researchers to continue to make comparative studies. So, ignoring something can simply be ignorance. Disproving something can be a theory. Just remember that. If you choose to ignore it, that's ignorance. If you've dismissed it because you can justify why, then you've just put it into the too hard basket pile or it doesn't work pile. And that's enough. And that usually ceases the objection to it. You've named it. Doesn't matter, named it. There, it's over there. We're looking at it, it's over there in the pile. Megalithic standard. Alexander Thom made a comparison of his megalithic yard with the Spanish vara, the pre-metric measurement of Iberia, whose length was 2.7425 feet. Thom has suggested that there must have been a headquarters from which standard rods were sent out, but whether this was in these islands or on the continent of the British Isles, the present investigation cannot determine. Many researchers have concluded that there is marginal evidence for a standardized measuring unit, but that it was not as uniform as Thom believed. Yet, many commentators and researchers of the MY, the megalithic yard unit, have found equal or close to equal measures of units throughout the world. Anne Macaulay compared the megalithic rod to being equal in length to the Greek fathom of 2.072 meters from studies by Eric Fernie of the meteorological relief in the Escholium Museum, Oxford. Margaret Pointing has suggested that artifacts such as a marked bone found during excavations at Dale Moor near Callanish, the Patrick Holm bone bead from Lanarkshire, and Dalgety bone bead from Fife in Scotland have shown some evidence of being measuring rods based on the megalithic yard in Britain. J. Capraff has noted similarity between the megalithic yard and the ancient Indus, the short yard of 33 inches. A hazel measuring rod recovered from a Bronze Age burial mound in Boreham Eshode, East Jutland by P.V. Glob in 1875 measured 30.9 inches. Keith Glitchlow suggested this may have shrunk 0.63 inches from its original length of one megalithic yard over a period of 3,000 years. Makes sense. Archaeologist Ewan Mackey noticed similarities between the megalithic yard and a unit of measurement extrapolated from a long marked shell from Mohenjo-Daro and ancient measuring rods used in mining in the Austrian Tyrol. Mackey suggested similarities with other measurements such as the ancient Indian Gaz and the Sumerian Sudu 3A concerning an oak rod recovered from the Iron Age fortified settlement of Bor Fen, measuring 53.15 inches and having marks divided into 8 parts of 6.64 inches. Mackey referred to 5/8 of this rod as 33.2 inches, very close to a megalithic yard. So, what is the megalithic system? Christopher Knight and Alan Butler further developed the work of Smythe's and or Stechini's grand scheme, in inverted commas, in their Civilization 1 hypothesis, which described a megalithic system of units. This system is claimed to be the source of all standard units used by the hypothetical megalithic civilization and is so named after the Neolithic builders of megaliths. Knight and Butler contend the reconstructed megalithic yard of 0.82966 meters is a fundamental part of megalithic system. Although the megalithic yard is the work of Alexander Thom, Knight and Butler made a novel contribution by speculating on how the megalithic yard may have been created by using a pendulum calibrated by observing the planet Venus. It also explains the uniformity of the megalithic yard across the large geographical areas. The accuracy claimed for this procedure is disputed by astronomers. Knight and Butler derived measures of volume and mass from the megalithic yard, which is divided into 40 megalithic inches. They claim that a cube with a side of 4 megalithic inches has a volume equal to 1 imperial pint and weighs 1 imperial pound when filled with an unpolished grain. They also posit ratio relationships with the imperial acre and square rod. Their book states that the sun, the moon, and the earth all conform to a grand design that is also evident in the megalithic structures that are scattered across the British Isles and Western Europe. Now, Egyptian metrology. Commentators on Thom's megalithic yard, which is the MY, John Mitchell and Ewan Mackey, agree that the megalithic yard is the diagonal of a rectangle measuring 2 by 1 Egyptian remnants. John Ivamy and Ewan Mackey have also noted how such a measure could relate to a geometrical ideas found historically in 2 of Egypt's metrological units, the remen of about 1.2 feet and royal cubit of about 1.72 feet. The remen and royal cubit were used to define land areas in Egypt. On documentary and other evidence, Griffith came to the conclusion that the square on the royal cubit was indeed to be twice that of the remen. And Petrie identified the Remen as a length of 20 digits. A square with a side length equal to the diagonal of the square with side length equal to 1 Remen has an area of 1 royal cubit. 10,000 was a myriad, of which to find an Egyptian land measure, the Satat. That's Mackey's. That's Mackey's citing him. John Ivamy noted that the ratio of the metric yard, RC, is the square root of 5 to the square root of 2 to the nearest millimetre, which makes the metric yard equal to the square root of 5 remens, or the length of 2 by 1 remen rectangle. Wow. Knowledge of round Earth. Now, Earth's circumference. Livio C. Stecchini claims in his A History of Measures, and here's the quote, "The relation among the units of length can be explained by the ratio 15 to 16 to 17 to 18 among the 4 fundamental feet and cubits. Before I arrive at this discovery, de Cure de Monche and Ox discovered that the cubes of those units are related according to the conventional specific gravities of oil, water, wheat, and barley." Wow. Stecchini implies that the Egyptian measures of length, originating from at least the 3rd millennium BCE, were directly derived from the circumference of the Earth with an amazing accuracy. According to the Secrets of the Pyramids, at page 346, by the way, his claim is that the Egyptian measurement was equal to 40,075,000 meters, which compared to the international spheroid of 40,076,596. That's very close. It's only 1,500 off. 1,596 meters off, which gives an error of 0.004%. No consideration seems to be made to the question of, on purely technical and procedural grounds, how the early Egyptians, in their defining their cubit, could have achieved a degree of accuracy that, to our current knowledge, can only be achieved with very sophisticated equipment and techniques. The round Earth. Robin Heath, in his book Sun, Moon and Stonehenge, proposes that megalithic builders were very aware that the Earth is a globe, or at least round, by the inclusion of archoastronomy and the standards of measurement proposed by the megalithic yard for Stonehenge and the Egyptian royal cubit of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And here's the quote. There's 2 paragraphs. "If the lunar year is represented by 12 metric megalithic yards, then 1 foot corresponds precisely to the extra 10.875 days to coincide with the end of the solar or seasonal year. Furthermore, the period between the end of the solar year and 13 lunations, 18.656 days, is represented by another unit of length from antiquity, the royal cubit of 20.63, or 1.72 feet. Hence, the equally astonishing revelation that 1 megalithic yard equals 1 foot plus 1 royal cubit, assuming that the megalithic yard was the primary unit, then the derivative foot and cubit appear to be formed a logical and essential part of the astronomical and calendrical researches of our Neolithic ancestors. If, however, the foot preceded the megalithic yard in time, and here we must remember that 1/1000th of a degree of an arc around the equatorial circumference of the Earth is just 365.224 feet in length, then knowledge of the roundness of the Earth must have predated the use of the megalithic yard, i.e. well before 3000 BC. Earth's polar circumference. Alan Butler proposed the concept of megalithic geometry, where megalithic measurements are based on a 366-degree circumference as opposed to 360, that of the Earth's polar circumference. The megalithic degree is the 366th part of it, i.e. 40,008 divided by 366 equals 109.31 kilometers. The megalithic arc minute is the 60th part of the megalithic degree, i.e. 109.31 divided by 60 equals 1.82 kilometers. The megalithic arc second is the 6th part of the megalithic minute, i.e. 1.82 divided by 6, which equals 036 kilometers. If this megalithic arc second is in turn divided into 366 equal segments, the length arrived at is 0.8296 meters, which is the presumed length of the megalithic yard, the supposed ancient standards of measurement proposed by Professor Alexander Thom in the 1950s. The discovery of what mainstream researchers call an apparent coincidence is what prompted Butler to propose the megalithic builders could have been cognizant with an Earth-based 366-degree geometry. Wow, that's something else. Let me just copy and paste that link into the chat room, because we cite all our examples. They're all there. So I've got 10 photos. I'm just, for those who are watching on YouTube, here's something really cool. So there's 10 photos that prove megalithic engineers predated the Inca builders. Machu Picchu means ancient mountain. The shape and style of the ancient megalithic construction there can almost appear to look something like something you would see in a futuristic space age film. Notice the megalithic construction on the left compared with the Inca construction on the right in the picture below. And you can see these very large stones and then suddenly all these small ones. Oh, I suppose that's here. This is the megalithic construction and that's the Inca construction. Very small stones, almost like bricks. Notice below the striking difference between the Inca wall on the right versus the superior megalithic wall on the left at Machu Picchu. So that's just a stacked rock wall, and that's it looks like it's been 3D printed. It's so nice. Yeah, sure, earthquakes have ravaged the area, and yeah, you can see a slot here which is a little wider than normal, but you know, given that it's how many thousands of years old, that's pretty fair. Notice the two very different forms of construction at the Inti Punku Sun Gate that features the much older precision megalithic architecture on the bottom and the smaller inferior Inca construction above. Yeah, it totally makes sense. That's the pre-Inca work, and that's the Inca work above. So if you can't replicate it, you just do what using the tech you've got, right? If you happen upon a wall that looked like this, and where are you going to get stones that look like they were putty when they were put in place, right? If you don't have the tech, you just build it out normally. Cusco might be one of the very few major cities in the world to display megalithic construction downtown. This picture below clearly displays the megalithic megaton mortarless stonework at the bottom, then the rough stone Incan construction on top of it, with the Spanish construction on the very top. Yeah, makes sense. Notice the precision cut megalithic doorway at Coricancha Museum below, with the rough stone Inca construction surrounding it. That's so awesome. I mean, I wish I could do that kind of work. I can't. Tipon is the Inca word meaning water temple. All I knew about this site upon entering it, this is what the author says, was that it was solely an Inca agricultural mezzanine. But as I looked closer, I learned there was so much more to it. In this picture, you can see the megalithic made water fountain contrasted with the loose rock Inca construction above it in the background. Totally. Now, Peru's largest archaeological site is Ollantaytambo, seen in the picture below. If the Inca had crafted the megalithic stonework as conventional archaeologists say, then why would they have connected these megalithic blocks together instead of filling the gaps with small rocks? Yeah, that's exactly. So there must have been another rock here, because, given the shape, I can imagine it. There could be 2 or 3. You wouldn't have just built these 3 rocks apart from each other, is what they're saying. Notice the megalithic trapezoidal door below at Ollantaytambo, with the rough stone and clay mortar construction of the Inca above it. Yeah, totally. Lying north of Cuzco sits the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, that is made of andesite walls that consist of interlocking blocks, with the largest stones weighing as much as 125 tons. Each foundational stone goes about 12 feet underground, making the walls earthquake-proof. Notice the rough Inca stone and clay mortar above compared to the mortarless megalithic stones below. And once again, I'll paste those into the chat room for our listeners in the chat room. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just go to revolution.radio and you can jump in the chat room and you can see what we're seeing live to air. It's only 7 minutes left. I'll do a little bit of this one. A global Aboriginal Australian culture, the proof at Göbekli Tepe. This is by Bruce R. Fenton on the 13th of October 2017. A global Aboriginal Australian culture, the proof at Göbekli Tepe. Now, it was originally published in New Dawn magazine, July 2017. Bruce Fenton. Now, Göbekli Tepe, famous for its T-shaped blocks. It appears to have been intentionally buried, and only some of those rocks were exposed to air, just the tips of them. And then when they started to excavate, they discovered an entire region of tepes everywhere, and it's in Turkey, but it's right. You can say that Iraq, Syria, and Turkey might have been all one place at one time, and that you can only imagine that this was the middle of existence. And here's another view, and yet another view of those T blocks. When they pulled all of the dirt away, there was a likelihood of these falling over. But you can only imagine that when they were constructed, there were things holding them together, possibly a roof, and that would make a lot more sense. And then therefore you wouldn't need all this structure holding them up. But since we've dug it all away, there you go. So the image is entitled Images of Göbekli Tepe, top beginning stages of the archaeological dig, plus location map, middle aerial view, and then the researcher Alastair Coombs standing next to one of the massive T-shaped stone pillars. Now, scientists and independent researchers have publicly speculated on the purpose of these mysterious Göbekli Tepe megalithic complex in southern Turkey. The question that the experts seemed unable to address is the identity of the builders. Having completed an in-depth investigation of human origins and early migrations, it is now appropriate to reveal my extraordinary findings, says the author. Göbekli Tepe is the product of Aboriginal Australian culture, he says. The identification of the builders will likely be considered very controversial, as it should, because this represents a major paradigm shift. Göbekli Tepe is the largest well-dated megalithic complex of the pre-pottery period. There may be other megalithic sites of greater antiquity, but none matches this complexity. It doesn't match the scale and advanced knowledge revealed at the site. In 1994, Klaus Schmidt of the German Archaeological Institute began excavations at the Neolithic hill site in what is today southern Turkey, formerly Armenia. Beneath the hill was the most extraordinary archaeological site yet uncovered to date, of course. Remarkable for both its immense size and incredible antiquity, Göbekli Tepe is an arrangement of at least 200 T-shaped stone pillars of up to 6 meters in height and 22 tons in weight each. The pillars are covered with imagery, so they're petroglyphs. The recognized boundaries of the complex include over 22 acres of land. The physical aspects of the Göbekli Tepe archaeological site are quite amazing, but its dating astonished researchers. The pillars of Göbekli Tepe have stood for at least 12,000 years, 10,000 of those underneath a huge pile of soil deliberately placed over them. It was buried. Just extraordinary. Göbekli Tepe is not some lone anomalous site existing outside of a greater context. Archaeologists recognize around 40 archaeological sites sharing the cultural signature observed at Göbekli Tepe. These are other tepes, that just means hills. These discoveries cover a vast area within the Mesopotamian region. Scientists have also identified a correlation between the distribution of ancient sites and the presence of wheat grasses. There has been significant debate on the purpose of the Göbekli Tepe construction. Mainstream academics tend to suggest it was a ceremonial site. Of course, they do that with everything. The plethora of stylized animals on the pillars, alongside many anthropomorphic beings, is certainly reminiscent of known shamanistic traditions. The strongest argument put forward by the academics is that a form of bird shamanism was observed by the local culture. Some members of the Göbekli Tepe research team have gone as far as to speculate that crane dances may have been performed here. Oh, it's hard to read. It's rubbish. Leading voices in the independent and alternative archaeological research community have offered their opinions on Göbekli Tepe. In his research book, with 1 minute left, Göbekli Tepe, Genesis of the Gods, the Temple of the Watchers, and the Discovery of Eden, Andrew Collins finds agreement with the proposed bird shamanism link, and that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to say this is show number, that's the next one, 652. That's where we're going to pick up next week. So look, I hope you've all enjoyed Megalithic Builders Part 8. Join us next week for another one. That'll be show 652. And in the meantime, I want you all to be safe and to be able to catch us for Plato's Cave at 7 a.m. Eastern Time in the US on both Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And keep listening to this station. We really need you.